What's going on, American truckers? I'm here at our Salt Lake City terminal doing a 34 on a 2,200 mile run going out to Evansville, Indiana. I picked it up in Vancouver, Washington. That's where I'm at. Hope all of you are staying safe and staying out of trouble. How's everybody out there doing? Hope everybody's staying safe. As y'all just saw, I'm sitting here at our Salt Lake City terminal doing a restart. I'll wash some clothes and go grab a bite to eat. I'm a little bit tired because I'm trying to reset myself. So I'm going to be leaving a little earlier in the morning, so I'm trying to stay up so I can go to bed earlier tonight. But anyway, I'll talk about this oil field thing. I see the oil field thing, people talking about it online out there a lot. Some of you guys have done it. Some of you guys are currently doing it. I myself, your boy olesnapper, I've done rig moving. I did rig moving for All Gear Oil and Gas Solutions at one time. I also did frac sand. So I got a little bit of experience in the oil field. Plus, I'm from South Texas. I was born and raised and grew up around the oil field. Most of my uncles worked in it, both onshore, offshore. I've been around it my whole life. But I'm going to get into this oil field thing. All right, let's get into that. I'm going to call this like the dark side, because the only upside to working in the oil field is every now and then you get a good paycheck. And you'll see drivers that brag or boast on it, and they may be doing that. But there's some things you need to understand if you're thinking about going to the oil field before you go to the oil field. There's some things you really need to take into consideration. And I'm going to get into that right here. But I'm going to start off by saying, is it a good move or a bad move? It really depends. Depends on the time of year. Depends on how the market's doing. There's so many factors. How many guys are in it? Because you can flood the oil field. It gets flooded sometimes with way too many drivers. And I'll get into that here in a minute. What happens when that happens? Some of these old school drivers that have been doing it a long time can tell you it sucks. It sucks real bad when it gets flooded with drivers. But I'm going to give you the good first. And the good is, if you get with the right company, you get the right setup, and everything works out right, you can make a decent living doing it. If the market's right, if the right administration is in Washington, which at the current time, the wrong administration's in Washington if you're thinking about going to do oil field. I know oil prices are going up, but the administration we currently have, if you do your research, they're more beneficial to foreign oil than they are to domestic oil. They're very much for going green here. As y'all saw, they shut down the Keystone pipeline. They've also shut down some other things that, tightened up on some of the other drilling and stuff going on around the country. But at the same time, they promoted Russia with their oil field pipeline, and or their pipeline over there. I don't know if it was oil or gas, but either way, they promoted Russia, and then also, support the Middle East quite a bit in their venture of oil. So the current administration more so benefits foreign oil. But the good news is, if you get in at the right time, you get in with the right company, yes, you will have some good weeks in the oil field. And if you work hard, you're going to work harder out there than you ever did over the road, I promise you, by a long shot. We're going to get into that here in a minute too. What's the downside? What's the dark side of frac sand or any of that kind of stuff? What is there that these drivers won't tell you when they're trying to recruit you? I'm going to let you know that right now. One is, and I hate to say it this way, nobody get me wrong, my son is half Hispanic, my oldest. But if you're not Hispanic, you will get run over sometime. Like, they'll try to unload the Hispanic drivers first. And I can't blame them. They're just sticking together. You know what I'm saying? So that's a little bit of a downfall. Another one is downtime, man, and this is a huge one. You'll hear some companies say they pay to merge. Demurrage in the oil field is similar to detention pay in regular trucking. All right. Now, as you know, detention pay in regular trucking is hard to get. It's the same in the oil field. It's hard to get demurrage pay. They got every excuse in the world for why they're not going to pay you demurrage. It's very difficult to get it. So you're going to fight tooth and nail for demurrage, and then when you do get it, after all the fighting you did for it, the little bit they give you, you're basically going. It's not worth it. All right. The up and down market. That's another bad side to anything to do with the oil field. It can be up today. It can be down tomorrow. I've seen the oil field go down. I've seen it go from full blown balls to the walls, getting after it, to absolutely nothing in a week. Literally. I can tell you a little story. My uncle worked offshore. I remember in 1988, I was over at his house visiting, and he left and was going to catch his chopper headed out to the rig. While his chopper was in flight, they shut that rig down, turned that chopper around, brought him back. He came back home. Literally he was gone just a few hours. That's how fast that life can change. It can stop on a dime. It's not secure at all. One of the things I hated about the oil field was many times I didn't have no cell service. And I had Verizon back then. Both times I was in the oil field, I had Verizon. And there were a lot of times I had no cell service at all. Even with the booster, I had no cell service. You're out in the middle of nowhere. That's another thing for y'all new drivers. If you're thinking about going to do oil field, get you a little bit of experience before you go do the oil field. Oil field directions and our directions are totally different. In the oil field, when they send you to a rig, they're not going to give you an address. They might give you coordinates. And if they do, that helps a lot. But you don't always have that either. Sometimes your directions look like this. Go 0.3 miles down the dirt road until you see the tree on the left with the broke down barn. Veer to the left at that Y. You're going to see rig number 26 on the right. Keep going. Another 5 miles. Turn right. Go another 0.2 miles. You're going to see a tank battery on your left. Go 0.5 miles past it. Frac sites on your right. It's going to be those kind of directions. And sometimes it's the middle of the night. You're on a little dirt road out in the middle of nothing with no cell phone service, trying to find this frac site. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of common sense. If you don't have the common sense, you will not make it in the oil field very long. And I hope some of them old school drivers get in on here that have done it and chime in and let you know it takes a lot of common sense. If you don't have the common sense, you're not going to make it in that line of work very long at all. Now you can get paid percentage pay or load pay or hourly. Those are three ways. Whenever I moved rigs, I got paid by the hour. And if I had to stay out on a rig move, it was multiple days. Sometimes some of the bigger rigs, the triples and doubles, or the walking rigs, whatever, they would require more. So we'd be out there longer, making multiple trips as we moved the rig either to its new location or back to its yard. Either they were going to take it out of commission, sell it, work on it, whatever. So, excuse me, those type of jobs generally pay by the hour. Now when I did frac sand, I got paid by the load, and it depend on the rig. Each job site had a different pay per load. Also, it depended on where we were getting our frac sand from. Obviously, the further away we were having to go to get it, we'd get a little bit more per load on that. The closer, the less per load we were getting. But I'm going to tell you, I made a lot more money on those lower paying loads than I did on the longer loads because I could just turn and burn. You know, at one time I was on a rig out in Big Spring, Texas, and it was 18 miles from the frac sand location back to where we were getting the frac sand at. And I mean, I was just turning. And we were running Texas Oilfield exemption. So basically, you're running around the clock, catching little naps while you wait to unload. Alright. Some of the guys like the longer runs, and I did make some money doing the longer runs, but I made far more on the short ones. Oh, and here's something that really sucked. This is a big downfall. It is hard to keep frac sand out of everything. You'll have it in your AC vents. You'll have it in your bed. You're going to have it in your sleeper. It's going to be in your drawers. It's going to be in your boots. It's going to be inside your fire retardant clothing. It's the whole 9 yards, man. And as you know, that stuff's been known to cause cancer and different things like that. That stuff is so fine. And if you've ever pulled up on a frac site, or if you've ever been driving down the highway and you've seen a frac site out there, whenever they're fracking, you'll see a little cloud around it. That's that frac sand. It's all up in the air. That stuff gets everywhere and on everything. I had an APU on the truck I had. Man, you turn the APU on, you could taste the frac sand. I could taste it every time I ate. It gets into everything. There may be some tricks to keeping that from happening. I was constantly cleaning, but I was never able to keep it down. It was in everything. And you do have to idle your truck while you're unloading, because you're running a pump. That's a pneumatic trailer. That's those some people call them pigs. They're pneumatic trailers. They'll have hatches on top that you open up. Sometimes some of them operate from down on the ground. A lot of them you have to climb up the back on a ladder and open them up, and then that's how you get loaded. You'll close them up, seal them off, and then when you get unloaded, you pull hoses off. You hook them up to the back, and then you run a pump. You build up pressure in the pig basically, and then you pump it out. I always pump my middle first, then my back, and then my front, or my front and my back, but I always did my middle first. There is a little bit of physical work involved with it. If you're not into physical work, oilfield ain't for you. There's not very many jobs in the oilfield that don't involve some physical work. Them hoses are heavy. A lot of times you're going to be dealing with that crap tired, 2 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold, or middle of the day in 118 degree heat. And when it's time to go, it's time to go. They run. They don't mess around. Now, that's the basic rundown of frac sand and rig moving. Okay, it's not in depth. That's the basics. Give you a little bit of an idea. Now I'm gonna tell you now, I'll probably never work in the oil field again. The reason being is it is too much up and down. And a lot of those jobs are 1099 jobs. I don't like 1099 jobs. A guy will show you his paycheck. It's a 1099 paycheck, but he hasn't paid taxes out of that yet. And he's going to pay full income taxes because he doesn't have the employer contribution that you do when you're on W-2. So you got to subtract all that from there. You can't compare like my pay to their pay. If you're going to compare my pay to their pay, you got to go on my gross, because my gross is what I would get if I was a 1099 employee. So if you're a W-2 employee and you're comparing your pay to someone who's working 1099, you need to look at your gross pay and compare it to their pay. Okay, because they don't have taxes coming out, they don't have insurance coming out, they don't have any of that. What you grossed if you were 1099 is what you would have took home. Now you still got to pay taxes, and you don't have insurance and all that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind, because a lot of guys get tricked on that. They don't know the difference. They say, oh man, that guy's taking home $2,200 a week. Well, yeah, you figure in my insurance and my gross pay, I'm doing a little bit more than that myself out here on the road. So nah, don't fall for that. Um, it can be a good job if you're willing to put in the work. You don't mind missing some sleep. You don't mind some really hot days and some fire retardant clothing, or some really cold days. If you do it up north, like up in the Dakotas and some places in Colorado, you're going to live out there. They have what they call man camps. A lot of times it's little trailers with a bed on each end, and you'll work a shift. So you might be on days, and the other guy that's rooming with you's on nights. So you always have the room to yourself, just like he always has the room to himself. But you're still dealing with a roommate, basically. Because if you do something out of line, or if they do something out of line, y'all are going to be at each other's throat at shift change time. And you got that to deal with as well. And sometimes, man, you just have a stroke of bad luck. Sometimes a frac sand well will go down, and I've sat on wells before they went down for 2 days. And I'm out in the middle of nowhere. You ain't getting no. You better have food on the truck. You know, because there's not even nothing out there you can kill and eat. You know, so you're out of luck. You better have food on the truck. Anyway, I hope this helps some of y'all who are thinking about the oil field, putting in some thought on it. Just make sure if you go to it that you consider all of these things, the good and the bad, so that you don't go over there and get yourself in a predicament and realize you don't like it. Alright. It is a little bit physical. You are going to sweat. There's not always a shower around. Sometimes you still go 2 or 3 days without a shower. You know, so you got to be willing to work through all those kinds of things. If you go to work 1099, you're going to have to be willing to pay your own taxes, figure up all that stuff on your own, and get all that stuff paid so the IRS doesn't come take your house, your car, and everything you own from you. So those are things to keep in mind as well. Hope some of you guys who have done this ring in on this and let these other youngsters know, you know, that it's not all sunshine and roses. I call it chasing unicorns, man. When I went in the oil field, I was chasing unicorns. I was chasing what I heard other people were making. That don't work. It's kind of like trying to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already been invented. If that's not your niche, don't mess with it. Alright. And I had some times. I had periods out there where I made really good money. But when I leveled it out, like if you look at it over the year, and you took my bad weeks and averaged them out with my good weeks, it wasn't that great. It was no more money than I make right here doing what I do. And I do a lot less physical work. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, y'all stay safe. Stay kind. Remember, we are all family. Hang in there with each other. Hope this helps some of y'all out that are out there thinking about it, since the oil field is kind of picking up a little bit. And y'all see old Snapper around, man, y'all give me a holler and say what's up. Y'all take care and keep trucking.